for joining us here on Leading Edge. I'm Kaylee Marentat in for Jeff Smith this week. Spring is officially just a few weeks away. We have our WTOL 11 Chief Meteorologist Chris Vickers talking about severe weather, springtime, and the walleye run. But first, we sit down with Gretchen Awad, the Development Director of the Susan G. Komen, Northwest Ohio, talking about the race as we count down the months until the big day. Gretchen, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
So we're talking about the annual Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure coming up this September. WTOL 11 usually sponsors. We're usually out there. Our John Birchfield is sometimes out there dominating the race. Yeah. Usually people have to wait a little bit longer to register for the race. We've been promoting this the last week or so. Registration's open earlier than ever.
Yes.
Why did you guys decide to open it so early?
Why not? We decided, we're running an extra long early bird, meaning $25 for adults, $15 for youth. And we thought this is our favorite time of the year. We never want anyone to come back and say, I missed that early bird registration. It allows those teams more time to gather. It allows our corporate sponsors and corporate teams more time to gather their people, set their calendars. And we thought, why not? It's our favorite day of the year, so we're going to start early.
So people have until May 12th to register.
Through Mother's Day, yes.
That's not too bad. You still got a little bit of time. Just $25 like you mentioned. We always talk about how the money goes towards fighting breast cancer. It seems maybe a little vague. What does that $25 actually go to?
It goes towards anything that you can imagine that someone might need if they are at risk or battling breast cancer. And when we say that, everyone's journey is different, everyone's needs are different. So it could be something as medically necessary as a mammogram or treatment options. It could be something like you have those treatment options, you've had that mammogram, you're currently in treatment, but you need support in housing, childcare, food insecurities. We never want anyone to have to choose between medical treatment and taking care of their family. And we're seeing some increased chatter, maybe some increased uncertainty. So we're seeing a lot of those dollars and a lot of the Komen team gathering around activation and gathering around our advocacy programs and really buckling down on making sure that cancer treatment and cancer research is not in jeopardy.
So you kind of teed up what I was going to ask you next. Court ruling out of Texas causing, maybe some panic, or people aren't sure where things are going to go when it comes to insurance companies covering the cost of mammograms and those other preventative measures, medications. Obviously, that's a little concerning.
This is very concerning, and it's, this is what Komen does. A lot of the things that we call our boots on the ground, and then a lot of those things that happen in the space of advocacy and making sure that breast health care is equal and equitable. So when things happen like Affordable Care Act is threatening women who might need that extra support, whether they have an increased family history or some other deciding factors that may have, extra insurance needs, we want to make sure that the Affordable Care Act is in place and those insurance requirements stay in place so those women and men can get the treatment they need. Maybe that's outside the traditional boundaries. And when treatment or when mammogram or when your basic baseline mammograms and care is put off and you have those increased parameters, that's when treatment becomes more difficult down the line in case of a devastating diagnosis. So early detection saves lives. It goes back to that mission of early detection saves lives, and that's what Komen does. And we are constantly checking to see what's happening in the courts and what's happening with our research and everything to make sure that we keep those basic principles intact, because that is what saves lives in the fight against breast cancer.
There have also, we were talking a little bit earlier, there have been some other changes that have happened this week in D.C. When it comes to federal jobs. Is this going to affect Komen in any way?
It will affect the state of healthcare. We believe, there's still a lot of unknowns, so we don't want to cause panic because there's still a lot of things that are almost being thrown against the wall, and we don't know what might stick, but we're going to make sure that we are prepared for whatever might stick. And if there is research funding being pulled through the National Institute of Health, that affects not just cancer research, that affects Alzheimer's, heart disease, and I'm sure any of my colleagues who work to advocate for those things would feel the same way I feel right now. And when you fund for let's say breast cancer, you are funding more than just that research. You're funding all the costs that go along with that, paying the researchers, keeping the lights on, paying,
putting
all
kids in childcare while you go and get
putting every, the research is more than just the laboratory. I almost say it's like if you're going to pull education and tell teachers, well, you can still teach, but we're going to pull all the equipment, all the supplemental staff and internet from your building, but go ahead and still teach. Those things go hand in hand. So we don't quite know when funding is being threatened, what that exactly means right now, but you can't have one without the other. You can't have wonderful funding and all that types of things without the supplemental support behind it. So there's two ways to fund, and we just need to make sure that both of them are still happening. And it's not just for breast cancer, it's for all cancers, it's for childhood cancers, it's for heart health, it's for Alzheimer's, it's for diabetes, it's for everything. So these are the things that Komen's also working to make sure stays in place.
With, the issue of insurances possibly down the road not covering these mammograms or other preventative measures for cancers, I would imagine it's already hard to get people to come in and screen and do these preventative measures, let alone you add an out-of-pocket cost for them. It's going to be a little bit harder. Talk about how hard it is in the first place to get, I know Komen every year has the mammogram station because you guys are promoting just go get checked, go get checked. Sure. How hard is that in the first place to get people to go to the doctors to do that?
It's very hard, and I can speak personally as a woman. I think we have so many other things on our plate, right? I have 3 children and a household to maintain and a job to do, and I'm thinking about what to make for dinner, and sometimes even I put off some of those basic things like think, oh gosh, I'm overdue to see the dentist. And I think that's just what we do. And thanks to our friends at Mercy Health, they supply that mammogram machine every year. They have walk-ins. You can check their schedule and see when a mammogram machine will be near you to make it easier for you if it's something you can do on your lunch break. But it's increasingly more difficult. And if you add in the layer of cost, it's even easier to kick that can, and that's the last thing we want people to do. So when you register for a race, you're registering for advocacy, you're registering for research, you're registering for care, treatment costs, cost of living. You are supporting all of those things when you register for a race.
Are there any alternatives to getting checked, or what's your message to people if they are wanting to get checked but just don't know how to go about it?
First of all, know your body. Be your own best advocate. That's what we always say. Know your family history, and no one knows yourself better than you. So if you feel something is off, talk to your primary care physician and make sure you get scheduled. If you feel insecure about getting that scheduled or you've never had it done before, this is what our friends at Mercy Health do. This is what our friends at ProMedica do. This is what our friends do at the clinics if that's an easier thing for you to do. You can also call the Komen helpline or log on to Komen.com and say, I've never done this before. This is where I live. Can someone help me? I feel I'm at risk, or I'm over the age of 40 and I've never had a mammogram. I can't afford one. This is what Komen does. They're going to ask you a few questions about maybe some of your economic standards or things like that, maybe some challenges that you have at home. And that's why we have healthcare navigators that are there to help.
You said, over 40. I think people, I'm 28. My friends, I don't know, I've never been screened. I know a lot of my friends have never been screened. Men and women, let's not forget that men can get breast cancer as well. What age, would you recommend for people to start screening? Well,
the standard is 40. We don't want that to change unless you have a family history, unless you have some of those different factors, whether they're genetic or, a history of cancer period in your family. Talk to your family, talk to your grandmother. We hear so many times that someone says, gosh, I don't even know how my grandma passed away. I was a child. We need to talk to each other, but 40 is the minimum. Again, always talk to your healthcare provider and say, is there an option? Can I get this done now? Because it's never, never too early to start your breast health care.
Awesome. Well, May 12th is the $25 early bird deal. How much is it? Let's say if I don't
after May 12th?
Yes.
$45.
Still not bad. Again, money going to a great cause here. A lot. You heard it from Gretchen. Lots of avenues that this money is taken to. The race kicks off in downtown Toledo Sunday, September 28th. You will not want to miss it. I know we'll be there, and maybe you'll have some runners in there. Gretchen, I appreciate you being with us.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
We'll be right back. Welcome back in. Temperatures are set to rise this week with some possible 60s. And even though the calendar doesn't say spring just yet, it's starting to feel like it. With spring comes severe weather. We have our chief meteorologist, Chris Vickers, here with us. Chris, severe weather week is a week from today. It starts the 16th. It's a good reminder for people to just kind of be prepared for severe weather and how it's coming.
You know, we always say you should be prepared year around, but really the spring season is when we put our primary focus on not only severe weather, but the tornado season. And if we consider what happened last year, and we're going to talk much more about that, we were already into tornado season, and it turned out to be quite the year. So we always tell people to be prepared and to be ready at any time, as severe weather really can strike with little warning. And of course, we're here to give you that advanced warning best we're able to do.
I think when people hear tornado season and a lot of tornadoes, they maybe think of Tornado Alley, Oklahoma, but Ohio is not immune, like we were just talking about, to tornadoes. We broke the record last year for 74 tornadoes.
Pretty incredible, and there's lots to talk about here. So yes, we tallied 74 tornadoes. Many here in Northwest Ohio may remember the year of 1992. We had multiple tornadoes, a few significant right here in Northwest Ohio. One in particular that destroyed parts of Anthony Wayne High School, went into Wood County. So it was a busy year. It took us the better part of several decades to actually knock that year off, with 2024 topping the list at 74. But you'll notice this, we've had many recent years on that top 5 list, including 2023 and 2019. So there's lots to this. Are we seeing more increased frequency of tornado activity? Or are we just getting better, so to speak, at detecting them? And a little bit of both may be the answer to that.
So the first one last year was detected February 28th. We've already passed that. Has Ohio had any tornadoes this year?
We have not had any tornadoes yet this year, which is good news. Part of the reason why is we've actually been so cold across much of the area. Haven't evolved into that warmer spring-like pattern, but I will tell you that can happen very quickly. As many from Northwest Ohio know how quickly we could go from the winter season, which we're seeing the signs of that right now, to warmer spring weather. Could happen in the matter of days or weeks, and we're making that transition as we roll into the week ahead. We're going to feel that much warmer weather, and we expect then severe weather season is going to quickly heat up, and we need people to be alert to that.
Seeing some of the damage from some of the tornadoes we've had here in Northwest Ohio. Are all tornadoes warned or detected? I know we have a lot of like EF0s coming our way.
So I really want to kind of highlight this point because it comes from the Point Place tornado, that EF2 tornado that came through Point Place. And at the time when that tornado actually touched down, there was not a tornado warning for that particular cell. So many people angry, and rightly so, and said, how could there not be a tornado warning for that particular cell? The important point I need to make is not all tornadoes are detected. And take a look at the stats here. About 81% of tornadoes are detected. For tornadoes that are EF2 or greater, that means about 19% of strong tornadoes actually come without a warning. Now, on average, though, for those warnings that we do put out there, about a 14-minute lead time for, on average, about 2,389 tornado warnings that are issued over a course of a year. We're giving people lead time that can save lives on average of about 14 minutes. But it doesn't mean that we catch every single tornado before they actually form. Now, our goal to detect tornadoes in advance before they form is to save lives and property. We're very good at doing that with the technology that we have, but we're not perfect. And I think the Point Place tornado really accentuated that. It was a day that conditions were marginal at best, but if a cell did develop, we knew that it could start spinning very quickly. That's exactly what happened. But please know, we're great at detecting these. We are great at forecasting where they're going to, days that could have potential tornadoes. We're not perfect quite yet. It is still an inexact science, and it's important for people to know that even though we know a lot about the science of meteorology, we don't have all the pieces and parts figured out quite yet.
Speaking of, I remember the Point Place tornado. I was downtown Toledo on a rooftop somewhere, and my boss is calling me saying, "You need to get in here. There's a tornado in Point Place." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then I actually bought one of the houses that was hit by the tornado.
Yeah.
And it was, my neighbors all say it really just came out of nowhere. We had no idea, no warning.
And that is rare, so to speak, but I did want people to know that that can happen in certain situations. So when we're in the spring season, summer season, we always want you to be alert and to be aware. We've got the great free WTOL TOL 11 weather app. It can help give you that advanced warning when we do detect one. And there's technology that is really helping us not only detect tornadoes on a greater frequency, but also be able to warn people in advance of them. And in fact, if you take a look at this graphic right here, many people have asked as well, have tornadoes been increasing over time? So the numbers would show, all right, 1980s, we averaged about 850 tornadoes a year. 1990s, 1,000, 1,200 in the year 2000. And then in most recent decades, about 1,300 tornadoes have been detected. So is this a climate issue? Are we seeing a higher frequency of tornadoes? Or are we getting better at detecting them? And it could be a little bit of both with this one. In fact, at this point, we know a lot about climate change. We haven't actually been able to attribute climate change to an increased frequency of tornadoes. We haven't been able to do that quite yet. So the better part of this answer is more likely we're detecting more tornadoes at a higher rate than we did back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I'll go a little further with this as well. There isn't a tornado that exists now that there aren't storm chasers, YouTubers, social media.
Oh, yeah.
There are pictures, there are video, instantly. We didn't have that back in the 1990s and 1980s. So there were a lot of tornadoes, weaker tornadoes, EF0 tornadoes, EF1 tornadoes, that went unreported or undetected at the time. So the better part of that answer is, why are we seeing an increased frequency of tornadoes? We're much better at detecting them. Some of them get surveyed days or even weeks later, where we determine it was a weaker tornado that may have slipped through the cracks many years ago. So we're more diligent about detecting these tornadoes, recording and record keeping. So part of the answer to why was last year such an active tornado year, well, it was, but we also detected many more tornadoes than we have in historical years in past.
So we had talked about this before. We're talking about detection, but a lot of people don't even know how tornadoes form in the first place.
Right. A lot of science behind tornadoes. I do a lot of elementary school talks, and I go into the
water
classrooms.
bottle.
The water bottle. And the kids love learning about tornadoes and really are fascinated by the science of tornadoes. We haven't really figured out exactly how. We know most of the ingredients, and you could kind of take a look at how this is going to unfold. And we've got a depiction of what happens during a tornado. So go ahead and take a look at this. We have wind shear that needs to occur when a tornado forms. So we have surface winds, but also stronger winds aloft. Those have to be moving at a different direction and a different speed. That creates a rotating column of air. Now, it takes another ingredient, a rising updraft within a thunderstorm, to actually take that rotating column of air and tilt it in more of a direction that you would see that vertical rotation.
Okay.
Once we see that column of air then tip, this forms into a feature in a severe thunderstorm that we're very clear about. It is called a wall cloud. So that is a protruding base of a thunderstorm, a supercell thunderstorm where we can see rotation or a potential tornado. This is the moment where we would issue tornado warnings. National Weather Service would detect this rotation. We would issue a tornado warning, and we would be on air broadcasting about a tornado warning before one is even detected, based on some of the signatures that we're seeing. Now, that wall cloud, if it continues to rotate, a column of air that extends downward to the surface would actually be called a tornado. Again, our goal is to lead time, a warning, 14 minutes before that actually happens. And if it does reach the ground, that funnel cloud becomes a tornado.
Wow, fascinating. Thank you so much.
Buckle up, you had some science today.
Love all the science. Well, stick around. Chris is going to stick with us to talk more about the walleye run after the break. Welcome back. Chief Meteorologist Chris Vickers is here with us. Chris, the walleye run was in full effect this time last year. If you don't know what the walleye run is, that's when walleye come upstream from the lake to the river to have their babies. So a lot of fishermen head to the banks. But this frigid February we're getting out of is kind of setting things back. How does this winter compare to last year?
Well, this winter's back a little bit more normal. Of course, we lacked in snowfall, but we didn't really lack in cold, especially January into February. So what we saw last year, the fact that we had the walleye run start in the month of February, we don't have exact records on this one, but we could say with good confidence, historically speaking, that was the earliest it had ever started in history. That was a combination of not only the lack of snow and ice that we had last winter, but the very warm weather. If you remember, remember, late February, we actually set the warmest winter day ever in Toledo's history, 73 degrees in late February. It felt like the middle of spring. So that really not only gave us the spring fever, but it gave many people that were looking to get out there for the walleye run that initiative to go out to the banks of the Maumee River and to try to catch some of the walleye. And from a scientific standpoint, we need a few things to happen for the walleye run to actually start, because the fish don't have that alarm clock, right? They activate by nature. So we need the water temperature to warm up. It needs to be at least 42 degrees, potentially 44 to 46 to actually activate the kind of the spawning that they need to actually do to get the walleye run going.
Where are temperatures at now then?
So that's the problem now this year. So last year we had the incredible warm weather. This year has been much colder than average. So instead of this time last year, we had water temperatures that were already in the mid 40s. We're closer to about 36 to 38 right now. We've actually seen a decent jump though, just in the past day or two, back to about 38 degrees. So we're inching a little bit closer to that 40, 42 degree mark, but it might take us a little bit longer. Warm rain actually helps that. So when we get warm rain showers from the sky, that is much warmer, at least the rain that falls, than the icy waters that are in the Maumee River. So a lot of the fishermen say we need to flush the river, get some warmer rain that does fall. So good soaking rain, but not too much, because you don't want the water level to elevate too high. It was unusually early last year. This year we're running a little bit behind, closer to average, but I do expect warmer weather this upcoming week will help a lot.
All right, thanks, Chris. Stick with us, we'll be back in just a second. That wraps up this week's Leading Edge. If you missed any part of this week's episode, you can catch it on WTOL 11 Plus or on our WTOL 11 YouTube channel. Don't forget, you can always connect with us on social media on our Instagram page, Facebook, and TikTok. Jeff is back next week. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great day.